Hello everyone, Nadeem Ahmad here, SVP of Technology Strategy at NTT Limited. I hope you and your families are well and keeping safe. I'm coming to you from sunny Austin, Texas. I'm doing so now because we recently released a technology brief which reviews the shift in the landscape of computing architectures and what that means for enterprise clients, traditional OEM partners, and of course for ICT providers. We believe the computing model evolution and adoption of hybrid compute are having a profound impact on organizations, vendors, and startups. And while it's not necessarily a groundbreaking observation, we're seeing enough maturity and adoption in the market now, enough to stop and take a reality check on what this means for applications, workloads, and the broader enterprise business, not to mention the ICT provider business. For those of you who may not have the time to sit down and read the document, I thought it best to offer this companion presentation video where I take you through the highlights and the key points of the paper. So I'll jump into a brief presentation now and then come back with some summary thoughts and considerations to wrap things up. See you in a few minutes. Hello everyone, thanks for joining me here for this presentation. So what I'd like to do is take you through some slides very briefly, and basically recap at an executive summary level our review of the shift that is occurring in the computing landscape. We'll talk about the 4 computing architectures prevalent in today's landscape and the rise of multi-cloud services and how this all impacts enterprises and ICT providers alike. So let's jump into it. So increasingly within the industry, we're seeing an interest by enterprises towards moving away from on-premise hardware deployments, while at the same time, the growth of cloud services from hyperscale providers. This will result in a significant impact on traditional OEM partners, as well as ICT providers. Even the #1 server maker in the enterprise market forecasts enterprise spend on cloud will rise to 40% of their infrastructure budget within the next 3 years. And so we think this will create significant opportunities for ICT providers to help clients address the transformation that is occurring. In multi-cloud environments, ICT providers can help their clients balance the risk of vendor lock-in while providing hard-to-get skills and scale them across the vendors. It will certainly impact ICT providers' go-to-market strategies and certainly their partner strategies, as their existing partners try to maintain relevance in the world of hyperscale deployments. And this transformation in the industry will drive a need for ICT providers to drive deep skills development for programmable infrastructure of all types in preparation for the hybrid cloud world. The market is going through multiple transitions with a strong move for enterprise clients to consider and adopt cloud computing models. Now, the market is also seeing new computing architectures emerging in quick succession, creating further challenges for enterprises in which models and architectures to pursue. So basically, the market is dealing with 4 computing architectures currently: the traditional physical server architecture, virtualization, containerization, and serverless computing. Each of these 4 architectures has a relevant place and fit, and it's highly likely that enterprises will have to consider, plan, and invest in all these architectures. Now, the longevity of these architectures depends on applications, and honestly, the financial and operational constraints around applications will require that these architectures are going to remain relevant for quite some time. The market is also dealing with multi-cloud services in the form of multiple service types, such as infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service, as well as the public and private levels. It is highly likely that most enterprise clients will use a combination of these cloud services, resulting in a multi-cloud environment. So the result of all this is a hybrid computing environment consisting of all 4 computing architectures and multi-cloud environments. And the more diverse the mix, the more complex and expensive the operations and service continuity. Again, the answer as to which cloud model or computing architecture to pursue will be found in the application or workload in question. It will not be a one-size-fits-all, as the expectation is that certain applications will be suitable or execute optimally on a specific cloud model, or computing architecture, and then in other models and architectures for different applications. And that will result in a situation where, again, enterprises will have to invest in all these models and architectures in order to truly benefit from the advances in technology. Now, in the interest of time, I'll direct you to our computing model landscape technology brief to learn more of the details of this hybrid computing environment depicted on the slide with the different computing architectures and multiple cloud service deployments. The technology brief is now available on our insights page at our public website at hello.global.ntt. But before I leave this slide, the takeaway here is that hybrid computing environments happen within and across both computing architectures and cloud service models, resulting in complex and challenging service continuity for most enterprises. An increasingly complex hybrid computing environment is a reality. So whether organically or through acquisition, we're also seeing vendor companies expand their product portfolio to cover the software-defined data center, software-defined workspace, and connecting these with a software-defined WAN fabric. These organizations are also embracing the hyperscale cloud providers, including Amazon Web Services, Azure, Google Cloud Platform, and Alibaba. Some vendor companies have even launched joint services with hyperscalers like AWS and continue to extend these offerings. Some vendors are going further to maintain relevance in this software-defined world and are re-engineering their product offerings to be fully programmable. Now, I'll discuss this element a little more detail a bit later. For now, what we're seeing over the last couple of years, as they re-architect and recode their offerings, there's a strong competition in the race to have the first true software-defined suite that extends from the edge to the full computing hybrid. The result will be a product portfolio that enables clients to simplify operations, service delivery, and cost. This will help to consolidate what has become a very cluttered market with regards to full computing architecture and application transformation platform for enterprises. Now, in our technology brief, we go into more details around the hyperscale providers themselves, as we're seeing them experience tremendous growth. We also address the fact that they are not satisfied with that growth, and they continue to expand the number, variety, and scale of the services that they offer to customers to meet the demand. So after absorbing what we've talked about in the last few slides, the question is, so what? What does all of this mean? And we've talked about the impact to enterprises and the decisions they need to make as they adjust to a new hybrid computing environment. And we go into a lot more detail on that topic in the technology brief. What I want to spend a little time to discuss is the impact to ICT providers as they look to help enterprise clients navigate the shift in the computing model landscape. Now, we think there are three main areas where we see ICT providers, areas where they need to address or tackle. One is that they need to button up their hybrid cloud strategy and better define services to support these computing architectures that enterprise clients are dealing with today. Two is to evolve their ecosystem of partners and ensure they're choosing partners that are addressing the paradigm and monetization shifts occurring in response to the hybrid compute environment proliferation. And three, they must fast track a skills transformation initiative within their organizations. Attaining new skills is often difficult, so they must transition in-house talent from legacy deployment and operational skills to software-defined skills. So let's unpack this game plan, if you will, for ICT providers. The next slides. When we look at the paradigm shifts occurring around moving from data center to cloud infrastructure as a service, or system software to software as a service, or even CapEx to consumption models, and also changes in the monetization schemes, ICT providers will need to evolve their ecosystem of partners and ensure they're working with the relevant players that will adapt and keep pace with the industry changes that we've been discussing during this presentation. Now, what's on the slide are just examples and certainly not a comprehensive list of what we're seeing in the areas of paradigm shifts and changes to monetization. One thing that's a little more implicit here, and I want to explore a little more, is around partners embracing programmability. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. This is as much a key criteria when choosing partners as the items specifically called out on the slide. Considering the complexity and scale of the cloud models and computing architectures and the adjacent infrastructure that goes along with it, it goes without saying that there is a major challenge to operate and service these complex environments and also remain relevant in the industry, especially in the light of the speed of technology transitions. The industry just does not produce enough skilled resources to perform the operational services to maintain these environments. Actually, the problem is multifaceted in that not only is there a shortage of skilled resources, these environments have become so complex and dynamic that humans can no longer perform the operations effectively or efficiently. So all operational models are now underpinned by a large degree of automation, which in turn requires all of these infrastructures and architectural platforms to be fully programmable. As ICT providers consider the objective to be a leading IT technology and services company for their enterprise clients, they'll need to really establish a preference for vendor partners that offer API-first technology and that is also fully programmable. And for those not aware, by API-first, we mean as new features and functions are developed by a vendor, those functions are made available via the API even before the management console. At the same time, one could argue ICT providers will need to proactively remove technology products from their partner portfolio that don't provide the programmability. Quite simply, there's no longer a sustainable business model for non-programmable infrastructure for ICT providers or their enterprise clients. Part of the game plan for ICT providers is around defining the hybrid compute strategy and how they plan to service and support the hybrid compute environments that enterprises are dealing with today. Clearly, there'll be a strong demand for support and managed services. But the services, whether we're talking about provisioning, delivery, operations, they should be platform delivered across the hybrid footprint. One area that arguably gets taken for granted sometimes or sometimes overlooked is technical services, specifically workload migration capability, both from a consulting perspective and an implementation service perspective. The workload migration capability will be very important, along with automated provisioning and operations. Now, innovation and evolution of computing models and architectures also comes with changes to skills focus. Now, this element applies to both ICT providers and enterprises alike. So ICT providers need to move from legacy deployment and operational skills towards software-defined skills. And the slide depicts some examples. Again, not a comprehensive list by any means. These services-led businesses need to update their job frameworks as well as learning and career development programs ahead of the transition to newer technology delivery. And make no mistake, acquiring new talent is difficult in this market. So companies really need to help their existing people in transitioning to these new skills. So in our technology brief, we offer some ideas around first steps and tools and platform to get the skills transition initiative started. We cover items like identifying personas, which are just groups that staff members can be categorized within as best as possible, of course. In the brief, we take the example of a network administrator named Jenny and discuss what she must learn in order to adapt to the evolution in the networking space. And we offer an example track around software-defined networking and OpenFlow, as well as a container architecture, as that will certainly change load balancer and firewall strategies. So again, it's just some high-level examples like that. We also discuss in the brief some of the learning platforms that HR organizations are starting to implement to fast-track learning, platforms like Pluralsight. So, but in the interest of time, I will direct you to that document for more details. And again, you can find that on our Insights page on our public website, and the URL is here on the slide. And with that, I'll end here and say thanks very much for listening to the presentation. Take care.
Hello and welcome back. I hope that presentation gave you a little more context and overview around the shift in the computing landscape that is occurring today. So I just wanted to add a couple of more items to consider. So we have these 4 distinct computing architectures evolving at the same time: physical servers, virtual servers, container-based, and serverless computing. This raises some big questions for enterprise organizations. What do we do with our applications? What workloads should move to the cloud? What must stay on premise? Can I re-platform some applications to run on virtual machines? Can I write others for container or serverless worlds? Most importantly, how long will it take to get this done so I can unlock the benefits of these new models? The realities of hybrid computing with all of these variations are coming into play in a big way for enterprise organizations. Some applications are simply not worth rewriting and will remain on physical servers on-prem for the many years to come. Some workloads are feasible for virtual machines and containers, but businesses will need to make these choices about how they approach development. Vendors too are feeling the impact, and they will have no choice but to develop software-based offerings. Everything they produce must be programmable. If it's physical, it must be virtual too, and available on all cloud marketplaces. And we talked about what it means for ICT providers as they need to nail down their hybrid compute strategy and evolve their partner ecosystems so they're working with the vendors that are also making the move from on-prem to cloud as they understand the shift from OS or hardware to workload. And of course, the skills transformation or transition that may need to occur for many ICT providers as they need to be in a position to offer services to address the gaps that enterprise clients may have in their teams. The answers to many of these questions raised by this new environment will inform important decisions about investment, operations, security, and skills. Now, admittedly, for the most part, those answers are still in the making. What we're likely to see for now is a hybrid world where everything, physical servers, virtual servers, whether on-prem or in the cloud, containers, serverless, as-a-service models, and cloud, whether that's public, private, hybrid, multi, all of this is used in the context of each architecture's merits and strengths to form a truly hybrid compute model. Well, that was quite a lot of information for a summary, but I hope you retained a few key points to go back and consider. I hope overall you found the time spent listening to me useful, maybe even a little interesting and worthwhile. So goodbye for now, and I hope you all keep safe, and just as importantly, keep sane during these challenging times. Take care.